Hello, my name's Ben.
And my name's Josh.
And welcome back to FPL Graduates. Welcome back to another video where we're going to be going through some of those dilemmas that you are looking at ahead of the next game week. Obviously, there's a lot of European football to be played before the deadline, and hopefully we can help you out through that.
So this week is a little bit different to other game weeks. It's the first week that we're going to see some of our Premier League teams in Europe. So there's 8 teams in total playing across the 3 European competitions of the Champions League, Europa League, and the Conference League. Those teams include United, Newcastle, Arsenal, and City on the Tuesday and Wednesday nights for the Champions League. And then we've got Villa, West Ham, Brighton, and Liverpool playing Thursday night. So it changes a few things. It obviously changes how many minutes the players are playing and what players will play in which fixtures in a couple of these teams' cases. It also changed what days they play on as well. As we'll see in this game week, there's a lot of games kicking off at 2 o'clock on Sunday due to those Thursday fixtures. In seasons gone by, Ben, how has this affected you in FPL? Like, would you say this is a big impact, or does it depend on which team sort of thing?
It has traditionally impacted the Champions League teams a lot more than those in the Europa and Europa Conference League, just because in the Champions League, teams are going to have to go really strong to compete in this tournament. It's a very strong competition with sort of tough competition. As you can see, Manchester United are away to Bayern Munich this week. They're going to have to play their starting 11. And it has, in previous years, affected Europa League where you can see a little bit more rotation and it allows you to see who's potentially sort of going to be playing at the weekend rather than European competition. So you'll probably see maybe Manchester City rotating a little bit more than they usually do. But, you know, they will still play pretty strong teams. And you've just got to take into account the travel times and stuff as well. Newcastle are away this week, so are Manchester United, and then Liverpool are and Villa are also away. So taking that into account, there's going to be a bit of travel time there, and it's always worth sort of holding your transfers until these European fixtures are taken place, just in case one of your players picks up an injury, because it tends to be these teams in European competitions that you're looking at assets for because they are the best teams in the league.
Yeah, 100%. And the deadline this week is at Saturday at, I think, 1:30, I do believe. So a little bit later than usual. So just something to be aware of there as well. We've got plenty of time. We'll hear all the press conferences from all the managers prior to that deadline, which is like crucial information. And a lot of people tend to make their transfers before price rises. Whereas me and Ben, I think we're in the same boat, whereas information is a lot more valuable than a couple of 0.1, 0.2 million here and there. So, yeah, make sure you wait until at least Saturday morning, Friday night if you have to make those transfers. That will be the crucial time when we've got all that information. So what players are we going to be looking at? So Chelsea, obviously a 0-0 draw with Bournemouth at the weekend. How they didn't score, I am not too sure. They had so many chances, just couldn't find the back of the net. Ben, who do you own from Chelsea right now?
So I currently own Nicolas Jackson and Ben Chilwell from Chelsea. So I've got a double up, and we'll go into Nicolas Jackson first, who has produced sort of a high amount of XG in his opening 5 games, but hasn't got the returns for it. And last game week in game week 5 was his worst return in terms of sort of XG. It was just the 0.2, and he just doesn't really look like scoring other than that first goal in the first sort of game week against Luton. So yeah, I'm sort of tempted to sell him in this boat. Yes, they've got a couple of nice fixtures coming up in 7 and 8, but it's coming to the end of that Chelsea fixture run, and we've just not seen anything from them from an attacking perspective.
Yeah, really disappointing. I haven't owned Jackson so far this season, but even just watching him, like, he still gets into really good places and positions, just doesn't quite get the finishing product there. So I think there was one against Bournemouth where he literally just hit him square in the face when he's about 6 yards out, and he still couldn't manage to score. So moving on to Raheem Sterling, he's the one that I own out of the 2 attackers. Obviously came quite close to scoring against Bournemouth. I don't know how that free kick didn't go in either. I think in general, Chelsea, if you've owned Chelsea assets, you could feel a little bit hard done by because they have created chances. It's not as if they're playing poor. It's just they can't find the back of the net at the moment. And I'm sure in the weeks to come, we will see them start scoring more goals. For me, with him, I'm more keen on keeping him just because he's looked quite good. He's had a lot of shots against Bournemouth, set pieces, things like that. He's on them. So, and especially for those fixtures, obviously Villa, like we said, they travel away. There's no European football this season for Chelsea. So that's a big plus for them. At home at the Bridge as well. Then they travel to Fulham and Burnley, 2 fixtures which are 2 of the best fixtures to choose right now. So For me, he's more of a keep. I think he's a decent asset to own. Ben, as a non-owner, do you think Sterling's still okay to keep until maybe that game week 8 to 9 wildcard?
Yeah, he's still a keep, but he's also sort of not a buy right now
Yeah.
for FPL managers. I think he's shown enough promise sort of in the last couple of games to say that you could probably get away of keeping him, just because there's sort of a lack of options right now in terms of decent midfield options that are performing well. Like there's a plethora of options, but none are performing very, very well right now and are sort of essential to jump onto. And I think in terms of the fixtures, Sterling's probably got the best sort of next three out of all of those midfielders that you're probably considering right now. So if you've got him, I'd look to keep him for now. He's showing a bit more than Nicolas Jackson is in terms of his finishing ability, and is a much more proven FPL asset over a longer sort of period of time as well.
Yeah, and then finally to move on to Ben Chilwell. Obviously, he was benched at the weekend, didn't start, came on, got yellow carded. Pochettino came out after the game and said that they are fielding a more attacking player in that sort of left midfield position that Ben Chilwell's been playing with Mudryk, and he think he'll do that for the foreseeable. So there is question marks over his minutes at the moment with Levi Colwill playing at the left back. What's your thoughts on the whole situation with Chilwell, Ben? Are you as an owner yourself, are you looking to sell him at the moment, or do you think that there's still potential there?
Well, for a lot of FPL managers, there's a lot bigger fires to put out than Ben Chilwell right now. Just because he gets benched 1 week doesn't mean his ceiling has dropped in any way, shape, or form. His ceiling is still very, very high from the start of the season. His goal involvement for a defender is really good as well. If you're looking at the first 4 games, to have a expected goal involvement that high is pretty decent. So let's wait and see with him. I think, like I said, there's some more necessary transfers going forwards. But yeah, a benching in game week 6 could see sort of a mass exodus of Ben Chilwell.
Yeah, really high owned asset. And I think if you've had him since the start as well at 5.5, you can afford for him to drop to 5.7 before selling anyway, and you still make that 0.1 up. So that's one thing to be in consideration of if you are owning him from 5.5 million. So moving on then, we're going to be talking about Manchester United, another team that has, a lot of people have started owning these players, maybe not played to the best of their ability so far this season. We'll start off with Bruno Fernandes. Obviously, United losing 3-1 to Brighton at the weekend. Bruno was involved, maybe not as much as he has been in the opening couple of games. I must say, though, that Man United have played some tough fixtures in those first 5. Spurs, Arsenal and Brighton, they're not easy games. I think just from an attacking point of view, though, we expected a bit more from these players, especially for their price point. What's your thoughts on Bruno, Ben? Are you sort of like in the outboat? Obviously, he's sort of changed formation against Brighton, and I think we might see that for the foreseeable due to there not being any right wingers at the club.
Yeah, I mean, Bruno Fernandes' general numbers whilst playing in that position is actually quite decent. So I'd almost be tempted to keep and hold on for, at least the next couple of game weeks, just because the fixtures look really, really nice. And yes, it's probably holding on a little bit too long. You're thinking, look, Man United, I'm going to turn it around. But they have been producing some not bad attacking numbers going forwards, at least individually. As a team, it's not been great, but individually, like the Bruno Fernandes he's not been doing too badly. So I'd again being more inclined to keep him rather than sell him for now, because there are sort of higher priority transfers out. I think if you've got sort of that extra transfer and you're looking to get someone out, I think Bruno Fernandes could go. But again, it's just being wary of those nice fixtures.
Yeah, Burnley away is a decent fixture there. And then Palace at home, United's home record, barring that Brighton game, has been really, really good. So, the last time they lost at home was Brighton, and then they lost to Brighton again the season after. So they're a bit of a bogey team for United at the moment. Marcus Rashford against Brighton, 6 shots in that first half. A lot of people saying he was greedy. From an FPL perspective, that is absolutely perfect. You want your players to be greedy if they're getting returns. He was really unlucky not to get a return against Brighton. Obviously, that ball being a millimetre over the line for that Højlund assist. I think if that goal goes in, we probably see a different game as well. What's your thoughts on him? Are you impressed by him, Ben? Or are you thinking it's maybe time to ship him on?
A little bit more impressed by him than Bruno Fernandes, which is weird to say considering the start of the season. But he does look dangerous still off the left. I think off the left we knew he was going to be much better than centrally. Although last game it looked like he's sort of playing a little bit more centrally with Højlund there. Again, it's a difficult decision to make for FPL managers because Marcus Rashford is a proven FPL asset, proven to get sort of a decent amount of returns in the season. But it is the case of paying 8.9 million for him. He's quite expensive for what you're getting right now. Again, his ceiling's really high, and I think it's worth warranting to keep for now. But again, it's not if I'd own him, sell him, and if I didn't own him, buy him. I'd probably do neither in each situation. I probably wouldn't buy him if I didn't have him. I probably wouldn't sell him if I had him.
Yeah, for me, I would not be selling these United assets because I just don't, like you alluded to earlier, I don't see anyone who's a capable replacement, especially at that price. Obviously, we had like Son last week. Everyone jumped on him, but we saw that, against those low block teams, he's maybe not as good of an asset. I think you might see better returns out of Son against the likes of Arsenal and Liverpool playing that higher line. But it'll be interesting to see over these next couple of game weeks who outscores each other between those Spurs midfielders and those United ones. Because I think they're the two at the moment that everyone have sort of either got or are looking to get. So it should be interesting going forward. In terms of a team to target at the moment, Newcastle is definitely high on that list. Their fixture run right now is looking really good. A 1-0 win against Brentford at home as well. Decent defensive assets, and Kieran Trippier is one of those that everyone is looking towards. 6.5 million is obviously an expensive price tag, but when you look at their fixture run, if you're not wildcarding in game week 8 and 9, this is perfect. You're looking at a really nice long-term fixture run. Obviously, his XGI probably not as high as it has been in seasons gone by, but he has faced some very tough opposition in those front 5 games. But I think we'll see a lot more attacking returns from him going forward from now. One thing to consider, though, is there is Champions League football, and we haven't seen Newcastle in Champions League football, as we alluded to at the start. So whether that means Trippier gets rotated a bit more, he is getting old now. What's your thoughts, Ben?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I think Kieran Trippier is a really important asset for this Newcastle team. So I'd be surprised if they do rotate out Kieran Trippier for the fixtures. But if there are any fixtures that he's going to be rotated out and rest for, it's for this fixture run right here whilst they have Champions League group stage football. So I would be slightly wary of that. And the price tag is obviously a bit more than the other Newcastle defenders. But the attacking output is what you're paying for with Kieran Trippier. And I think the underlying numbers are actually decent considering the quality and the caliber of teams that they've played so far this year. They've played against all very good teams this year. So let's see how they do against a team that's sort of less superior in terms of technical ability to them. I think Newcastle could do well in this upcoming run of games.
Yeah, definitely. And obviously the other alternatives you could go for, you've got Botman at 4.5, Shah at 5. Who would be your pick out of those, Ben, in an ideal world? Like, money's no issue. Would you choose Trippier over them?
If money was no issue, then it'd have to be Trippier for the attacking returns. But we are, unfortunately, in a world where we're sticking to a budget, and I'd probably look more towards Sven Botman rather than anyone else, just because the price tag so much cheaper. 2 million saved, you can get in sort of a lot of high quality assets into your team. And if you are looking towards maybe the Liverpool fixture turn sort of in game week 8, 9, and you're looking to get Salah in, I think you're going to have to make a sacrifice, such as having Botman instead of Kieran Trippier.
Yeah, definitely. Looking in forward to their attack, obviously Callum Wilson started against Brentford, scored a penalty. So he's on penalties, which is a massive plus. Obviously, that is his first start this season. He's come on off the bench 4 times, has scored 2 other times, which is quite impressive. 50% return rate off the bench is nothing to be sniffed at. With him and Isaac, Ben, what's your thoughts on that? Because I think this is one of those cases of whether similar to maybe like Ramsdale and Raya at Arsenal, like one will play Champions League, one will play Premier League potentially. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think this could be the case here. I think Isaac and Wilson will be rotated in and out, sort of based on European fixtures. So I'll be keeping a close eye on how Newcastle line up in Europe this season. I think Callum Wilson is still a really important part of the team. And part of the reason is because he's so good off the bench and scores those crucial goals off the bench, fresh legs, and that sort of thing. But I do see him playing himself into the starting 11 for Newcastle. He's playing really well right now. 3 goals in 1 start is crazy. So, yeah, I do see Wilson playing himself into the team. And it's definitely one that I'm monitoring for my list of replacements for Jackson anyway.
Yeah, really nice asset. And I think if we do see Isaac start on Tuesday night against Milan, I think there's a strong chance that you could have Wilson away to Sheffield United in that game. It'll be interesting to see. Obviously, we've seen Isaac move out wide as well, but I think that'll be a little bit less this season now that they have more options out wide, like Gordon and Harvey Barnes. And then into the last option that we've picked here, Anthony Gordon, 5.5 million. He has started all 5 games for Newcastle. Not played full 90s in all of them, but it's good to see that he's starting. And obviously 1 goal and 2 assists in his first 5, which for a 5.5 million pound asset is quite a good return. What's your thoughts on him, Ben? I think he's quite a lively asset. I don't know if we're going to get a massive return out of him, but if you need someone cheap, I think he's not a bad option, right?
Yeah, he's not bad for a midfield enabler in your team. If you wanted to go with 3 strikers up top in your team and you wanted to sort of spend a bit of budget on, say, like a Watkins, a Haaland, and another sort of a more expensive sided striker, I think Gordon perfectly enables you to do that at 5.5 million. I don't think there's too many better options at that price point at the moment. But again, it's a case of Newcastle have got a really sort of deep squad this season. So we could see rotation with the Champions League. He is clearly the first choice winger under Eddie Howe, at least for these first 5 game weeks. So let's see how this Champions League affects Newcastle, because it's such an unknown quantity, Newcastle in Europe. We haven't seen it before really in FPL anyway. So let's see how they get on. And, you know, we could see Gordon rotated in and out a bit more, but I do think he's sort of solidified himself as that number 1 spot on the left.
So they are our deadline dilemmas for game week 6. Let us know what yours are in the comments. We will reply to every single one of them, as we always do. It's a tricky game week for myself personally. Got 2 free transfers, and I'm in a position where I'm not sure what moves to make. I think there's a lot of average performances at the moment, which I can't decide which average one to take out because there's fixtures and all sorts. What's your thoughts, Ben, and your sort of transfers?
I mean, my transfers are going to be a little bit easier. There's a couple more fires to put out in my team. I've got a couple of injuries as well. So I'll be looking to move on 1 or 2 of those players. And I've got 2 free transfers as well to do it. So I'm fairly confident. I know the players that I'm moving on, but just not the ones that I'm going to bring in as of yet.
Awesome. So, as always, like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already to the FPL graduates. We massively appreciate it. We're nearly at 3K subs, so we would really appreciate it if you're not subscribed already to subscribe to the FPL graduates.
And as always, I've been Ben.
I've been Josh.
We'll see you guys
later. Have a good game week, everyone.